Okay, welcome, Katie. I'm just saying hello, Katie. I'm just background to yourself and who you are, what Friends of Dorothy is about. It'd be lovely to hear about your work.
Yeah, I'm Katie Robinson. I'm a trustee of Friends of Dorothy. I've been a member of the group for just over 3 years now, I think. And I first got contacted them at their Ruby Slipper Ball, which is their big fundraiser in 2018, I think it was. Quite by accident, really. I'd only been out as trans for probably 3 years, something like that. I'm 70-year-old. I've got a wife, 2 daughters, and 4 grandchildren. So I've had a base of a stable family life, just trying to work out how I could fit my being a trans woman into all of that. I'd come out, and as they expected, the emotional impact on the family was massive. But it settled down a little bit. But there wasn't a great deal of support for me as a trans woman in there. Again, most of it around why. Why would you want to choose this as a lifestyle? And so I was feeling a little bit out of things. And my son-in-law, husband to my youngest daughter, rang me up and said that he'd got tickets to Friends of Dorothy. He knew Craig Burton, who was the founder of Friends of Dorothy, and they'd had somebody give back word on a table. So he had 10 tickets, a full table to it. He says, I think this would be great for you. Do you want to come along? So I said, yeah, great. And him and his wife, my youngest daughter, came. My oldest daughter, one of my granddaughters, and I think my son-in-law invited 2 of his customers, and my youngest daughter invited 2 of her customers along. So we had a table, and that was the first time we'd been out as a family to any sort of event or anything, and it was absolutely fabulous.
Sounds great, fantastic.
To be out there. I got talking to 1 or 2 people while we were at the ball, and had a chat to them. And again, the flyers were in there, so I picked up one of their flyers for contact. And we had a monthly lunchtime meeting at that time over in a pub near the Playhouse in Leeds. It was, just a fairly informal get together. It's really somewhere for older LGBT people to go and meet with other people of a similar age group is the main thing, because you've got all different aspects of the LGBT, but they understand your circumstances, how being LGBT relates to you as an older person. Because I was in a couple of other trans support groups, but they were predominantly like 25-year-olds, around that age group, and you don't have a lot in common with 25-year-olds. So it's been a long time since I was that age, and again, I appreciate their situation, but Friends of Dorothy was so different, and again, they're older and more mature, so they're more comfortable in who they are, and they've got a backstory to them that's absolutely fantastic. And again, it's a wide range of things that they've been through, but a lot of them have been through all of the history of LGBT, coming through gay rights, gay liberation, HIV, becoming legal. Again, a massive freedom that we picked up from there. So I started going to the meetings on a regular basis then, and it was a highlight for me to be in that group, and it contrasted with the other, if you like, events that I went to. I went to was effectively a Tea-Girl night out on the first Friday in Leeds, it's a clubbing event, and while it's not my scene, I don't drink and I don't like loud music, but being a big group, because that's a group of between 120, 200 Tea-Girls go out. So it's really amazing to be in with that amount of people. We'll go down Lower Briggate, and wherever you go, in any of the venues down there, there'll be a dozen or more of people that you've seen before. Again, that's a wide spectrum as well. There's young ones up to right up to older ones as well, all going out and enjoying themselves. Okay. And so yeah, Friends of Dorothy for me was a different aspect of I suppose being out and proud, really. And I went to the Thursday meetings. We have a speaker sometime. We have some food laid on. We have events. It's like a news type thing. So this is what we've done. This is what we're going to do. We're thinking of planning this. Who's interested in going, and then and just sitting around chatting with each other, and until again you all drift off. You've got other things to do and what have you. And then the other thing that the other event that they had was what we call a Silver Sunday lunch, which was it's now the second. Well, it was the second Sunday until COVID closed us down, and probably about anywhere between half a dozen and a dozen of us used to go to a restaurant somewhere, either White Swan where City Varieties is, or New Conservatory in the middle of town, and just meet for lunch. And spend an hour, a couple of hours chatting and eating and socialising. And again, that is a strictly social event, so it's just whinging about everybody and sharing what's been happening. So again, it's a similar group of people in there. So you meet, that means you're meeting twice a month on that, which keeps that level of contact with you, that you're not on your own. You're in with a group of a reasonable size, and talking about dozens of different topics. So the history of Friends of Dorothy is Craig Burton was the founder, and he's a gay man, and he'd out on the scene like everything. It had a history through being gay, and he'd read a report somewhere about the incidence of loneliness within older LGBT group, because we have a different background to heterosexual people, because heterosexual people generally have families, so they've I suppose fitted into social norms in a lot of cases. Even though they're gay, you're expected to be heterosexual, and sometimes it's easier to go down that route, but predominantly you avoid those situations because it just doesn't fit in with your sexual orientation, and you don't want to go down that route. So you just have same-sex partners, whether you're gay or lesbian, whatever. So you don't get the opportunity usually to have a family. So you don't have children, you don't have grandchildren. As you get older, your group of people that that you relate to get smaller and smaller because they keep dying off, and there's no younger ones to replace them usually, because again, older LGBT don't tend to fit in with younger LGBT. It's one of these things. It's your own age group. Same reason we go to Friends of Dorothy, because they're our age group. They relate. younger ones don't relate to the older ones, and so you don't build those contacts. So when you get to be 50 plus, you've, I think statistics about 40% more likely to be socially isolated because you don't have any contacts to go out with. And a lot of the older ones want to go on the scene because it's built around pubs and clubs. So again, it's not that situation, because if you've been out on the scene when you were younger, it's usually in more quiet, reserved, hidden away places than in a nightclub in Lower Brigham. So again, it's you're losing that social circle. You tend to stay at home.
Okay.
Again, even in your neighbourhood, you don't always feel free to talk to the people that you live near about being gay, about who your partner is, who the person is that you live with in the house, because it doesn't always go down well. Again, even though it's legal now, that doesn't mean it's tolerated, because passing a law will not change somebody's attitude. The fact that they can't do anything about it or say anything about it doesn't alter how they feel. So they, again, a lot of times they assume that it's a friend that you're living with. And if your partner dies, you could have been together for 30, 40 years. And when you lose your partner, the reaction that you get is, oh, isn't it, a shame that you've lost your friend. And it isn't a friend. It's a much deeper relationship than that. So you can't explain it. You can't speak to people. You don't have a social circle you can share this with. So it's quite a lot of, got the sunshine on me.
I did notice that one. There's a bit of sunshine light.
Yeah. So again, it just deepens the isolation that you get. So for Friends of Dorothy, Craig thought what that group needs is somewhere where they can meet with other people of similar circumstances, similar age, similar backgrounds. All our stories are different, which is fine. We're individuals, but we all share common elements in it, of places we've been, things we've done, things we've lived through, and our lifestyle is different to mainstream, and all the problems that involves. So he set about getting in contact with people who are older LGBT and providing them with somewhere that they could socialize. Craig calls it social currency.
Okay, yes.
So when somebody says, oh, what did you do last weekend? Oh, well, nothing much, because you're isolated. You've got no friends. You've got nowhere to go. Whereas now you can say, oh, I went to a meeting with some friends, and we had a talk about whatever it was, and it's met Kim and Tim. They had a great chat about Tim's garden. The fact that it's an LGBT environment doesn't have to come into it, but you've got some social activity that you've been to and you can freely talk about to anybody who asks, and that lifts the isolation from that side.
Yeah.
So he set that up, and again, you go about talking to different groups and publicizing it, putting flyers here or there. If you find somebody who's LGBT and lonely, ask them to the group, and like getting people to know who we are, and that there is somebody there is a group who you can relate to, and it's grown from there. I mean, Craig's absolutely fantastic at talking to people in positions where it will get the word out about Friends of Dorothy. People who appreciate what he's doing and are prepared to support it and sponsor it, and talk to other people that they know. So again, it's working off the back of Craig's social network, his business network, all of those, introducing it into businesses. so that they can, like diversity and inclusion events, going there and representing Friends of Dorothy. And he's invited some of the members along to those. So 3 or 4 of us will go to one of these events at a business, and Yorkshire Building Society, DWF Law, and other places, and tell our stories and tell what it means. And their LGBT group within that business, it publicises who we are. It gets them involved in our group as well. So we now have members that aren't older LGBT, but they appreciate who we are and what Friends of Dorothy are doing, and they support us.
Fantastic.
So we have an interaction with them as well.
So how long, yeah, I'm just going to say, when did it was set up? How long have we been going?
It was set up in, when would it be? Probably 2017.
Okay,
somewhere
fairly.
there. It's been going for 3, nearly 4 years. Okay. But it was the 50th anniversary of decriminalisation. Yeah. And Craig picked that date to start it because it was a specific event and that was worth celebrating. Yeah. But not just for what it was, that to decriminalise homosexuality and allowed the LGBT community to have the freedom to be who they were, but that a lot of the people in Friends of Dorothy actually lived through that area and before it. So we knew what it was like before, and going through it, and the freedoms we have now. I mean, some of that is lost to a certain extent. Craig mentioned a while ago that he'd been on one of his talks that we were doing to a business somewhere, and the younger LGBT people in there hadn't realised that homosexuality used to be illegal because it's not in their frame of reference. It never has been. The younger group have always been able to be whoever they want to be and go out, what have you. They didn't even realise it had been.
Wow. That is.
You could get locked up for it, and all sorts of other horrible things. But it's letting people know that. Again, broadening their experience to say, this is what it's built on, this is where it comes from. And again, they might know older LGBT, might have an older uncle or auntie, someone that they know at work. And they could now direct those people towards Friends of Dorothy, so that the older people that they know also have somewhere where they can go and feel comfortable.
Fantastic. It's really good to hear, Katie. I think how you're describing the history, the politics, but also recognition of the isolation and combating how older people, as we get older, our circles of people diminish and they get smaller, and yet the social isolation is compounded by the lack of contact, particularly your own intergeneration contact as well as generational contact, isn't it, Katie? So I mean, in terms of Friends of Dorothy, so how is it? It's a charity, or can you tell me about the setup, work as volunteers?
When it was set up, it was a social group. That's its classification. In that Burton, as an individual, had set up a group to support another particular group on a social basis, and he was totally responsible for what happened. And he raised money, he spent it, he organised things, and that was it. Any counting of financial had to be reported in the same way that any other business venture would. So, you're earning money, you're spending it, and you're keeping records of what it is. That type of group has a limit on how much turnover you can get, which is £50,000. Okay. So once you start turning over more than £50,000, you have to cut back on what you do to keep your income down. or you have to change the group's status. So you have to either become a charitable company or a charity itself. And there are advantages to both of those in the way that they run, the tax breaks that you get from government and various other things. And they decided to go around on the charity route. So we got in touch with a group of lawyers and arranged for them to set it all up for us.
Okay.
And I think it was March the 10th of this year, we actually gained charitable status.
Congratulations.
So we're now a charity in our own right. We're responsible to the Charities Commission for what we do. Okay. There's loads of rules and regulations that we have to follow, which is, it comes with territory. We get tax breaks from the government in gift aid. So you've got to keep HMRC happy. You definitely don't want to upset that group.
So, Katie, are there paid workers? Katie, are there any paid workers, volunteer-led?
No, because we're still only a small group. We only have 80 members in Leeds and a similar amount in Manchester. So we don't have enough income at the moment to support, giving that money out to a paid worker. So it's all done by volunteers. The advantage of being a charity is that you're then eligible for a lot of other grants that you earn as a social group. So we could get more income and get some bigger grants. But again, once you start applying for bigger grants, you have more hoops to jump through. You've got more policies and procedures you have to have in place. So we've got all of that set up. But once that's in place and we start making progress with it, then the amount of income we can generate will increase, which means we can put more events on. We can offer more services to our members, and if we need to, we can pay volunteers to do or pay people as a paid job, part-time, whatever it needs, do specific things for us. So it's just stepping up, your game.
Yeah, of course it is, Katie. And I think it's every growth, any organizational has its own grassroots momentum, and it develops and becomes into something else that it has started off as. Okay, just in terms of the kind of, I know that you described some of the ways that you engage your members through the drop-in sessions, which were face-to-face and now they're online. Can you just talk a little bit about what it's like now in our new reality? And what's it like for you and for the members, Friends of Dorothy members?
It's been a massive learning curve for us to change from being all together in the same place with physical contact, because again, LGBT groups are quite often very tactile in what they do, and to be in the middle of this pandemic where you can't have physical contact. If you're in close proximity, you have to wear a face covering. So it muffles your voice. You can't see facial expressions. All of these sort of things all impact on the type of interaction that you can have with people. And the other thing is you can supplement that by technical means, by having Zoom calls like this, but where 50-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 90-year-olds, a lot of us don't do tech. and we're lacking visual acuity. Your fingers don't work. Touching small devices and trying to press buttons and read what's on the screen and over, it's way more complicated than experience of a lot of members. So that in itself is a challenge. Some of them they don't have, their level of tech is a landline. So all you've got is your standard handset for a phone. So you lose the visual aspect. Even if you go on a Zoom meeting, it's just voice that you get. And unless you're very good at recognizing voices in a group of 15 or 20 that are all, keep jumping from one conversation to another, you tend to lose the thread.
Yeah.
And do move fairly quickly, the meetings from one subject to another, one conversation. If we've got a speaker on, then you tend to get 20 minutes of a continued presentation, which you can listen to, but you can't see. I said, well, I'll just share my screen and show you this slide. It doesn't come over on an ordinary phone. It would come over on a smartphone. But again, some of our members don't have that level. So it's filling a small space in there, but it's nowhere near what we used to have. And Craig said, we've spent 3 years getting these people to come out and be visible and meet with each other. And now we've gone and locked them away again and denied all of that benefit that they had there. So it is difficult for it, and we're losing engagement with our members on that, which is one of the things that we're trying to do. Is try and increase the number of ways that we can.
What are your thoughts on some of those different ways you could do the engagement? Have you tried different things? Or?
Just by having a telefriending team. We've got phone numbers for most of our members. But it's assigning a group of people to a volunteer. Say, can you ring these people up? And even if it's just once a week, just to ring them up, say, hi Kim, how are you doing? Are you all right? What are you doing this week? And have the normal conversation that you would have had in everyday life. It replaced a little bit the monthly meeting that you had, where you would have a couple of hours together. If it's only a 15-minute phone call, it's something that breaks up their day-to-day routine, because they did have a little routine, so they go out to the shop, they go out for a walk, they move around. Now even that is more and more difficult for our members, in that you have to wear a face covering when you go out. If you're in more populated areas, if you're in a shop, if you go to a supermarket, the risk of catching the virus is greatly raised. And for older ones, its impact, if you do get the coronavirus, is a lot more serious. We've got members who are frightened to go out. Just because of the risk of catching the virus.
And definitely, Kate, I suppose what I'm hearing is that there's two sides to this. One side is trying to combat that isolation, but the reality is that if you reduce isolation, means that you're opening up them to potential harm as well. So it's trying to balance those two sides all the time. But also, Kate, I think you talked about a little bit about introducing speakers to the work that the Friends of Dorothy have done. I've been part of that. Fortunately, been invited in to your meetings and stuff. So, can you tell me a little bit about the way you've introduced conversations about particular things that people are experiencing to help them make them feel more connected?
Again, we've had quite early on in the beginning. We have several members who have got a wide range of contacts in the entertainment business. So. Christopher Biggins, Carol Vorderman, Freddie Davis. These are all LGBT people who are in show business, if you like, or are prominent and well known, the celebrities. And they're also in lockdown as well.
Okay.
So they don't have any of their regular business, their regular jobs. So they're enthusiastic about just doing a 30-minute show to older LGBT people. So they're great with that. So we get them in, and again, they're characters, just the same as our members are. And Miriam Margulies, for instance, an absolute scream. she's on, because she has no filters at all,
Yeah.
which resonates with our members
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And Rob Orderman, who's like an absolute genius.
Yeah.
In things, and really supportive, and they love that sort of thing, and it's personal.
Yeah.
Because you're not watching a show with thousands, millions of others. This is someone who's come on to talk to us, to Friends of Dorothy, who 20 or 30 people that were on there, and it's that level of engagement is absolutely fantastic. The members love it, and we keep trying to get different celebrities to come in, or people who are knowledgeable about particular things. We had a talk a while ago from a university lecturer about Polari, which is a language that gay people used to use when it was illegal to be homosexual, so they could have a conversation about what they were doing, and nobody would understand what they were saying. So a lot of the members relate to that. They use that in their everyday life back then.
Thanks, Kate. I mean, I think that kind of leads me on to the conversation that I introduced in terms of cancer awareness and Answer Cancer, the program that I'm involved in. Kate, can you tell me a little bit about your experience of how cancer has impacted in the community in terms of the conversation that we had about cancer awareness, and also about the NHS screening programs? And some of the barriers as well as to why people don't come forward. Yeah.
Cancer awareness, there's a range of different responses to it. It's one of those things that you hear stories about all the time, and they are emotionally wrenching stories of people getting this, and it's one of the dreads that a lot of people have. Think, it's terrible that's happening. Oh God, I hope it doesn't happen to me. And the reaction to it, that it has such an impact on people's lives, not just the person who has cancer, but their family as well. That you shut down from it. You don't want to face that emotional trauma, or even know about it. If you don't want to get it, if you do have it, you dread knowing about it, because it's going to change your life. And people shut down. And there's screening that you can get that will detect a range of cancers at an early stage, when you can do something about them. And all right, you still have it, you've still got the treatment to go, which is not nice, but your chance of survival through it, the reduction in the damage it causes is massively changed by knowing about it early on. And I can remember some of my older relatives, and they talk about, she died from cancer. She went in for something, and when they opened her up, it was all through her body, and people never knew about it, because you think, oh no, and it's, oh no, it can't be that. It must be something else. It must be something I've eaten. It's because I'm getting older. Whatever it is, and there's a resistance to being tested, to being screened, because once you're screened, you'll know, and you'll know you've got it, and then it goes downhill from there. So they try and put that off. They don't realise that putting it off doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. So that there is resistance on that. And some of the screening programs that they have, not the most pleasant of things to be involved in. Breast screening, cervical screening, bowel screening, they're not pleasant things to do. And again, they back away from that. They back away from talking about them. And that doesn't improve your chances of doing it. I mean, I worked in a cancer hospital for 10 years as an IT manager. So I've seen the people that come through, from children up to, pensioners going through. I've seen what it does to them, how they decline when they've got it, and the ones that improve, the treatment's a success, and they go away and live as normal a life as you can with that. And also, I had cancer myself in 2004. Again, just stomach's getting a bit big, too many biscuits, too much wrong food, and you think, no, it's not what you'd expect. And the first thing I did was ring the GP up and say, can you have a look at this, see what you think, and went through the system, and 3 months later I had surgery, had a massive tumor removed and half my stomach as well, and survived. And that was 16 years ago, and I'm still here today. No side effects, no recurrence. If I hadn't have done that, then it would have been a completely different outcome. But because I knew about it, because I pursued it, and did whatever I could to get this thing sorted out, then I'm here today. So I would definitely support any screening. I'd tell anyone, if you've got the chance of improving your chances of this, do it. Because the alternative, it could take the rest of your life away. And it could.
Yeah, well said, Katie. I think this is it. I think you touched on a number of denial, fear, worried about what the treatment might be like, when it might be the most easiest part of it. So, and also about the conversation. I think one of the things that I wanted to raise within our conversation was just talking about it. And as you get older, and I suppose the other aspect of this is about within the LGBT community, particularly. What do you think are some of the kind of issues here in relation to facing up to cancer?
It's the impact it has on your private life, because part of it is knowing if you're at risk for things, and they want to know what your lifestyle is. So again, in some areas there's a resistance to, if like say how far you've come out, we've told about it, whether you want medical staff knowing and what their reaction was going to be. Again, this is a historic thing that's just now changing within the NHS, and it's becoming a lot more inclusive and friendly towards LGBT people, and they're actively monitoring that to make sure that being LGBT has no impact at all on your journey through the NHS services. So it's irrelevant, other than physical things, that there are some lifestyle choices that impact on your health, and that's fine. But if there are, then the staff need to know so that they can tailor the treatment that they give to your circumstances. And again, lifestyle of LGBT people is different to heterosexual people, and we need to have our specific needs as gay, lesbian, trans. That's another issue. We need to have those addressed, and without it being an issue. So yes, I have these needs, and that's fine. Right, we'll look after those then. Not, oh, you are. Oh, so there's very little of that within the NHS now. It still does happen in that it's new practice, new procedure, so they're getting used to it, and you've still got that element of attitude with people. you do have some people who have got specific negative attitudes towards LGBT, and you can't alter that. You can only try and educate them a little bit. You can't force them to change. But it's being introduced more into conversations in the NHS. So people are becoming aware of it and being more sensitive to the needs of LGBT.
Katie, I suppose that's fantastic. I think you described in a way, we are ultimately individuals, you know,
Yes.
and we ultimately need to be treated with respect and dignity. And ultimately we need to be seen in a whole rather than as kind of a box, you know, around LGBTQ. We'll treat you differently than we would do, you know what I mean? So having that kind of understanding is kind of paramount, isn't it? It's important. So in terms of just wrapping up, Katie, is there any final message I'd like to say in terms of cancer awareness and cancer conversations within the LGBT community you'd like to share?
Yes, that you need to talk about it. Some of the subjects are uncomfortable and unpleasant, but the outcomes, if you engage with it, can be far better than if you don't. If you talk about it, if you have a screening, if you have a positive attitude towards it, you can change what happens in your life. Screening, it only takes a few minutes. It's like 10 minutes and you're out. You might have to wait half an hour, but it's done. If you choose not to do it, the consequences could take the rest of your life, could take them away.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
So it is important to do it.
Yeah, well done, Kate. Thank you for that. It's really positive message up that we can share with everyone that's listening and hopefully seeing us as well, Katie. So can I say thank you? Thank you so much for helping to make this a very informative and valuable kind of conversation about Friends of Dorothy. And hopefully everything goes well with Friends of Dorothy as well as it goes forward in terms of its work in the country. So thanks, Katie. I'll hope to speak to you soon. Talk to you soon.
Yes, I will.
Thanks,
you,
Katie. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, Katie. Bye. Bye.